All right, we are recording for it's actually 20. It's the 20th story. And I'm making the folder for it right now. Which is kind of neat because there were 40 in total, so I'm halfway through now. Yay. Well, halfway once I finish it. Once I finish this video. So, the queen bee is not what I would expect from the name of it. Yes, there's a queen bee in it, a literal queen bee, but what we're getting here is a story very similar to the previous one, The White Snake, in that you have, yes, it is the previous one, in that you have the main protagonist, the main male protagonist, being kind and, wanting to protect other people, and this then resulting in those he showed kindness to giving him a reward, which allows him to complete a task, and ultimately he gets married, much like in The White Snake. But other things are different, and I think there might be more than just that morality here. I'm not sure, but I'll try to explain that when we get to it. So, the story starts with there's a king that has apparently 3 sons, at least. The 2 eldest decide, we want to explore the world. We want to have adventures. So they go out to do that. And how did it put it? They were not ready for it. Fell into a wild, disorderly way of living so that they never came home again. So I'm guessing that that's not so much that they actually found adventures, rather they just went out and couldn't really go further, but also couldn't come back. Well, the youngest brother, who is called Simpleton, decides that he wants to go and find his brothers, wants to go and help them. So he goes out to find them, and they start mocking him because it's like, how can you think you can go out on an adventure when we're so much cleverer than you? So it's like, fine. Then the 3 of them go off to have adventures. But 3 things happen. Yes, 3 things happen first. That start to show the obvious moral here. They come across an anthill, and so very much like in The White Snake. And the 2 eldest want to stamp on it because they then want to see the ants, scurry about trying to get their eggs to protect them and all that. And Simpleton is like, no, I will stop you if you try. Hey, what does he actually say? Let the creatures in peace. Leave the creatures in peace. I will not suffer you to kill them. They then go by a lake and they find a Oh, no, sorry. Leave the creatures in peace. I will not allow you to disturb them, is what he says for the ants. For the lake, where he sees they find a good number of ducks. The brothers want to take a couple and kill them and roast them. Leave the creatures in peace. I will not suffer you to kill them. And then finally, they come across a bee's nest that has honey dripping out. There's so much there. And they want to build up a fire underneath to suffocate the bees, which I'm not actually sure if it does suffocate them, but it would get them to be docile or leave. But he says, no, leave the creatures in peace. I will not allow you to burn them. So definitely with the ants, there's no reason to do that. They're just being cruel. With the ducks, potentially it is but we're hungry. What are we going to eat? But it is also if they already had, food, or at least not the need for this. Again, it's you don't need to do that. Then with the bees, though, what they're talking about if the honey is dripping out, that would seem fair that Simpleton would be like, no, we can have that, but we're not going to try to take more. Sort of the golden, which actually, hang on, the next one is a golden goose. But the goose that laid the golden egg kind of thing, where just what you're being given, accept that, don't try to go for more because you will destroy it. But anyway, there's that. So 3 times, ants, ducks, and bees he protects from their cruelty. Then they find a castle, which seems like no one's there. But they come to a room, they find a room in it that has 3 locks on it and a glass window, a pane in the center so you can look through, and there's a gray man in there, which is either just referencing the fact that he is old, or because it's also reference to people being turned to stone, maybe he also was, kind of, sort of, partially turned to stone, at least. unsure. But in either case, they have to knock 3 times before he finally gets up, opens the door, comes out, and gives them food, shows them to rooms, and then the next morning explains to them the situation. That there's a challenge. Well, 3 challenges, 3 tasks, that if they complete, well, whoever completes it will get the castle. It will be theirs. I want to make sure it's a little odd how it's phrased, but oh no, by the performance of which the castle could be delivered. So sorry, that because it wasn't yet clear that this was under enchantment. So this would be delivered likely from the enchantment. Okay, that makes more sense now. The first is to go out and find 1,000 pearls. And like they've been strewn about, and both of the elder brothers tried this, but one only gets 100 before morning comes, at which point the challenge is done, and he is turned to stone because he failed to collect all 1,000. The second manages to get 200 stones, but fails. Simpleton decides, yeah, I'm still going to take this on, even though it seems like, why would you? Anyhow, so he takes it on, goes out and starts weeping because he can't do it. Well, the king of the ants is there, and has all the ants, I think it says like 5,000 or something, 5,000 ants, collect together all the pearls and laid them in a heap before him. Okay. Now, one thing important, and this is where I think that we're actually getting a second moral here as well. These pearls are the princesses. Now, the way this is actually written implies they belong to one princess, but there are 3. But in any case, so he's collecting the pearls for the princess. The second task is to fetch a lake out of the key. Fetch a key out of a lake, which the ducks help with. And this is the key to the daughter's bedchambers, to the princess's bedchambers. Okay. I mean, to be fair, you may need to unlock them, but it's also the third task is there were actually 3 princesses. And he needs to identify, the task is to identify the youngest. They look the same, though, so the way you can only tell them apart is that prior to the enchantment, which has them all asleep, is they've eaten different sweetmeats before they fell asleep. The eldest a bit of sugar, the second a little syrup, and the youngest a spoonful of honey. That's where the bees come in, because the queen bee comes and tastes the lips. The one that had honey, it rests on, so he knows that's the youngest. So then this breaks the enchantment. Okay, and then everything was released from sleep, and those who had been turned to stone received once more their natural form. So this would be the 2 brothers. There was also mention of horses that they had spotted there that were stone, but the princesses would have been awakened at this point. I don't know what the stay is for the gray man or for the king. It's not clear. I mean, the king does exist, but it's not clear like where he was in all this. It does feel like this story is a little cut down. There are some details that should be here. But in any case, Simpleton married the youngest princess, the one who he identified. And this is also where it's interesting. After her father's death, he became king. Okay, that makes some sense. And his 2 brothers received the 2 other sisters. So, what I kind of feel... Well, okay, so that might be a little separate, but what that kind of reads to me is that the king didn't want his 2 elder daughters to marry Simpleton's elder brothers. Little interesting, that. Especially because Simpleton is like, well, once the king's dead and I'm king now, yeah, sure, you can marry them. I'm sorry, I would just find that rather awkward. But it does also show his caring towards them. That he does want them close, wants them taken care of. But anyway, the other moral that I think may be here is, what are the 3 tasks? Collecting the pearls, the key for the bedchamber, and we're not going to we don't need to go into like anything questionable there, and then identifying the princess, the correct princess. So I wonder if this is also supposed to be talking about, like, Simpleton is preparing for marriage, in that if we take it as collecting the pearls as preparing wealth so that you can keep a woman, essentially. You can keep your wife, you can keep her fed, clothed, all that. The key to the bedchambers could be symbolic of just having a home, having your own home, and then lastly, identifying her. Actually finding the woman, identifying the woman that should be your wife. I do wonder if that is actually part of it here as well, because then, well, it also does make some sense because of the whole, the way it was even described. Hang on. Two kings' son once went out in search of adventures and fell into a wild, disorderly way of living, so they never came home again. That how some of that is sounds a lot like the parable of the prodigal son, who went out, squandered his wealth, and then couldn't return. Well, he did ultimately return, felt he couldn't, that he was such an embarrassment, but then it was like, well, wait, if I am even just the lowliest worker for my father, I'm going to have a better life than I'm having now. So different moral than this, but it still is the two elder sons, they couldn't collect the wealth together, which is actually, if they're having this wild, disorderly life, that might actually be yes, they're not ready for marriage. That they are not prepared to be able to do things to take care of a wife. So yeah, I am actually thinking more so now, because it is more, it's still a hypothesis, but I think that is more evidence showing that actually might be what the moral is here. Or the secondary moral. The first moral being the kind temperament, which Simpleton has, the other two don't. That could also explain the king not wanting his two elder daughters to marry them because might recognize they're not worthy of it yet. Now, hopefully by that time they would be, but I still could see that being an element of it. Yeah. I mean, just it had, the main thing had occurred to me, and also the prodigal son thing had occurred to me, but I didn't link that together quite so much with the whole 100 and then 200 pearls, that they were not capable of it. That they wouldn't have had the wealth, they would not have had the home. Yeah, I think that does actually make some sense. Which is then just interesting to consider, not just the moral of the story, but who would this story be told to? Because it is, some of these stories are probably more so being told to daughters, some would be more so told to sons. This one potentially would be more so told to sons because of that messaging of what you need to do to prepare for getting married. You basically need to have a job so that you can keep yourself and a wife, and you need to have a home to keep her and yourself in, as well as family life. So it's, yeah. I don't know why it's titled the Queen Bee, though. I really don't. Because the queen bee is not is no more significant than the king of the ants or the ducks. A title referring to the simpleton would make more sense. Referring to simpleton would make more sense, but yeah. Anyway, the next is the golden goose, which I'm not sure how similar it will be to like the goose who laid the golden egg. And also just looking at some of the images here, there's one, and now there were 7 following the simpleton and the goose. So apparently simpleton is back, at least as far as the name is concerned. And it is, they had fun with the typesetting here if you look at that, because they actually have the text going above and below the V here, which is odd. I get it as far as, like, especially for a child reading this is going to be interesting, it's going to be engaging, but the text, because every image has not flavor text, has a caption to it, it's down here. Oh, come on. So you've got the normal text of the tale here, and then you've got that text down here. So it's only on the one page. Just how it's that is odd typesetting. Yeah. I mean, it's still kind of neat, but it is also a little odd. I wonder if there's any other complex typesetting like that. And I'm just gonna, because mostly it is just, an image that takes up a full page or half a page. I'm not seeing anything. Although it is also interesting because I'm noticing more that are like a quarter page. So it's just off to the side, so you do have text written next to it. Whereas for many of these, oh no, here's some one, Clever Hans, where again you got text being broken by the image. Although in this case, okay, so if we assume it is a single image, we have the caption for it down here, so it's clearly separated from the other text. Which that is better, I think. Just for the clarity. But yeah, we're also seeing something like this, which I don't recall seeing in the first half of the book. This is interesting. This again, where you do have text wrapping around it, but it's not really all that fancy. We have the caption below. Boy who did not fear. Or wait, was it did not fear or? Yeah, did not fear. Yeah, that is odd. It is almost like I mean, it's this here as well. Where you got it is almost like it was a different typesetter for the second half, or it was as the person was doing the typesetting realized that they could do this kind of stuff. Because I mean, it's also I don't know how well this will show up, but you can kind of see the text wrapping around the border of the image. So it's not as like a straight vertical line for the edge. It's actually like coming in under the finger there because it can. And it's just I don't recall seeing anything like this earlier in the earlier in it, and when now in the second half. So it is almost like was it the typesetter a different typesetter for the end of it? Was it a typesetter that finally learned how to do some of the stuff? It's like, oh yeah, let's do that, and just didn't go back to the beginning. I don't know, but I do find that kind of interesting. I mean, some elements of that I don't necessarily like how it was going in under the finger that I just showed. That's a little much, but the thing like the V that I first showed you, that is actually pretty neat. I could see a kid reading it and liking that because it is more visually engaging. It's a little dangerous because of how the text is split, especially with the caption then being next to the text. I mean, yes, it is italicized, and it also seems a little heavier. That like the weight of the font is a little heavier there, but still not my favorite idea there. Not yeah, but yeah, it's neat, and I can see a kid also seeing it as neat. But then why is it only starting halfway through? That seems a little odd. All right, more than enough of my blathering, I think. So, shall see you next time.